The milk snake is not a creature shaped by dominance, speed, or venom, but by perception. Its survival story is written not in the language of force, but in the psychology of fear, the biology of imitation, and the long memory of predators. To understand the milk snake is to understand how evolution sometimes rewards illusion more than reality. Across the landscapes of North America, from forests and grasslands to rocky hillsides and agricultural land, the milk snake occupies a quiet but persistent presence. It does not rule these environments, nor does it retreat entirely from them. Instead, it exists in the margins, beneath stones, inside rotting logs, within abandoned buildings, and along the edges of human activity. This positioning is not accidental. It reflects a lineage that learned early on that survival often belongs to those who avoid attention rather than command it. The evolutionary roots of the milk snake trace back to a time when snakes faced intense competition and predation pressure. Venom is one evolutionary solution, speed another, size yet another. The milk snake's lineage chose a different path. Rather than investing energy into producing toxins or developing extreme physical attributes, it refined efficiency, stealth, and mimicry. This decision would shape its future more profoundly than any single physical trait. The coloration of the milk snake is the most immediately striking feature of its body. Red, black, and white or yellow bands encircle its length in a pattern that instinctively triggers caution. This pattern closely resembles that of venomous coral snakes, a resemblance so effective that even experienced predators hesitate. The evolutionary principle at work here is Batesian mimicry, where a harmless species gains protection by imitating a dangerous one. Over generations, predators that survived encounters with coral snakes learned to associate this coloration with pain or death. The milk snake inherited that fear without inheriting the venom. This mimicry is not perfect, nor does it need to be. Evolution does not aim for perfection, only for sufficiency. The resemblance is close enough to cause doubt, and doubt is often enough to save a life. A predator that hesitates loses opportunity, and in the wild, hesitation can be fatal. The milk snake thrives in that hesitation. Physically, the milk snake is built for control rather than confrontation. Its body is long, flexible, and muscular, allowing it to navigate narrow spaces with ease. Its scales are smooth, reducing friction as it moves through soil, leaf litter, and tight crevices. The head is narrow and unassuming, housing teeth designed to grip rather than inject. There is no venom gland, no hollow fang, no chemical weapon. Instead, there is pressure, persistence, and patience. The milk snake's nervous system is highly attuned to environmental cues. Vibrations transmitted through the ground alert it to approaching threats or prey. Chemical signals carried by air and substrate are sampled continuously through tongue flicking, allowing the snake to construct a sensory map of its surroundings. This invisible awareness compensates for limited eyesight and allows the milk snake to function effectively in darkness. Historically, human misunderstanding played a significant role in shaping the milk snake's fate. The belief that milk snakes drank milk directly from cows was widespread across rural communities. This myth likely arose from the snake's frequent presence in barns and livestock shelters, environments that also attracted rodents. Farmers, observing snakes near cattle, drew conclusions based on fear rather than evidence. As a result, milk snakes were often killed on sight, blamed for illnesses they did not cause. In reality, the milk snake's presence near farms was beneficial. By preying on rodents, it reduced crop loss and disease transmission. Yet perception outweighed reality, and the snake's reputation suffered accordingly. This pattern of fear-driven misunderstanding mirrors the evolutionary pressures that shaped the species itself. Just as predators feared the milk snake because of what it resembled, humans feared it because of what they believed. The milk snake's behavior reflects a life spent avoiding unnecessary risk. It is primarily nocturnal or crepuscular, emerging during cooler hours when predators are less active. During the day, it remains hidden, conserving energy and reducing exposure. This rhythm aligns with its metabolic needs and its prey's activity patterns, creating an efficient overlap between opportunity and safety. Even in moments of threat, the milk snake avoids escalation. When confronted, it may vibrate its tail, coil defensively, or strike without delivering venom. These actions are warnings, not attacks. The goal is deterrence, not domination. Injury is costly, and the milk snake has evolved to minimize it. At this stage of its story, the milk snake emerges not as a passive survivor, but as a strategist shaped by millions of years of selective pressure. It is an animal that mastered the art of being mistaken for something else, and in doing so, secured its place across an entire continent. Life for the milk snake unfolds in a narrow space between exposure and concealment. It is an animal that exists not in dominance but in balance, navigating an environment filled with threats it cannot overpower and opportunities it cannot afford to miss. Every behavior it exhibits reflects this tension, a constant negotiation between risk and reward. The milk snake's daily life is governed by temperature. As an ectothermic animal, its body does not generate heat internally. Instead, it relies entirely on external conditions to regulate metabolism, digestion, and movement. When temperatures drop too low, the snake becomes sluggish, its reflexes dulled. When temperatures rise too high, dehydration and stress threaten its survival. The milk snake responds to this constraint not through physiology alone, but through behavior refined over evolutionary time. During warmer months, it adopts a largely nocturnal or crepuscular lifestyle. Darkness provides cover, cooler air reduces metabolic strain, and prey becomes more active. The milk snake moves deliberately, rarely rushing. It glides along the ground, pressing its body against surfaces to maximize sensory input, reading vibrations and chemical traces with remarkable accuracy. This slow, methodical movement is not weakness, it is efficiency. Hunting is an exercise in patience. The milk snake does not actively pursue prey over long distances. Instead, it positions itself along likely routes, near rodent burrows, bird nests, or structural gaps in barns and stone walls. Once prey is detected, the strike is swift and precise. The snake seizes the animal and immediately coils, applying pressure that restricts breathing. This constriction is not about crushing bones but about controlling airflow. Within moments, the prey succumbs. The diet of the milk snake reflects its adaptability. Small mammals form the core of its nutrition, but it does not limit itself to a single food source. Birds, eggs, lizards, amphibians, and even other snakes may be consumed depending on availability. This dietary flexibility allows the milk snake to persist in environments where specialist predators might fail. Juvenile milk snakes face a steeper learning curve. Newly hatched individuals begin with insects and small ectothermic prey, gradually expanding their range as size and strength increase. Survival during this stage is precarious. Predation pressure is intense, and only a fraction reach maturity. Those that do carry forward the genetic blueprint of caution, adaptability, and efficiency. Shelter plays a critical role in the milk snake's survival strategy. It rarely constructs its own refuges, instead exploiting existing structures. Fallen logs, rock crevices, abandoned burrows, and human-made debris all become temporary sanctuaries. These shelters provide protection from predators and environmental extremes, but they also anchor the snake within a network of microhabitats that define its home range. Unlike territorial animals, milk snakes do not aggressively defend space. Home ranges may overlap, and encounters between individuals are usually brief and non-confrontational. Energy conservation remains the overriding principle. Conflict is avoided whenever possible, and when interaction occurs, it is typically limited to mating. Reproductive behavior is timed carefully. As temperatures rise in spring, males become more active, following pheromone trails left by females. These chemical signals persist in the environment, allowing males to locate mates without direct confrontation. Courtship is subtle, involving tactile cues rather than elaborate displays. Mating itself is brief, efficient, and unremarkable, reflecting the species' overall approach to life. Eggs are laid in warm, concealed locations where temperature and humidity remain relatively stable. The female provides no parental care beyond site selection. This apparent indifference is not neglect but evolutionary pragmatism. In an environment filled with predators, prolonged presence would draw attention and increase risk. Instead, survival is entrusted to instinct and chance. The incubation period varies with environmental conditions, and hatchlings emerge fully independent. They carry no memory, no guidance, only inherited behaviors shaped by countless generations. From the moment they enter the world, they are subject to the same pressures that shaped their ancestors. Ecologically, the milk snake occupies a crucial but understated role. By controlling rodent populations, it influences seed dispersal, vegetation dynamics, and disease transmission. In agricultural settings, this role becomes particularly significant. Where milk snakes thrive, rodent damage decreases, yet this benefit often goes unrecognized. The relationship between milk snakes and humans is paradoxical. They benefit human environments, yet they suffer disproportionately from human fear. Roads fragment habitats, leading to mortality during seasonal movements. Development reduces shelter availability. Education improves perception, but deeply ingrained fear persists. Climate variability adds another layer of complexity. Shifts in temperature and precipitation patterns affect prey availability and breeding cycles. While milk snakes are resilient, rapid environmental changes test the limits of their adaptability. Survival becomes less about long-term strategies and more about immediate response. Despite these pressures, the milk snake endures. It does not dominate ecosystems, but it stabilizes them. It does not inspire awe through size or ferocity, but through persistence. Its success lies in doing just enough, taking no more than necessary, and leaving little trace behind. In this quiet endurance, the milk snake reveals a truth often overlooked in nature. Survival does not always belong to the loudest or the most powerful. Sometimes, it belongs to those who learn how to exist unnoticed, misunderstood, and underestimated. The final chapter of the milk snake story is not written solely in forests, fields, or barns, but in the human mind. No other force has shaped its modern existence as powerfully as perception. For thousands of years, this snake survived predators by exploiting their fear of something else. In the last few centuries, however, it encountered a new kind of predator, one driven not by hunger, but by belief. Across cultures, snakes have carried symbolic weight far heavier than their physical presence. They have been feared, revered, worshipped, and demonized. The milk snake, harmless by nature, became entangled in this symbolic legacy. Its resemblance to venomous species, once a gift of survival, turned into a liability in landscapes dominated by humans. What predators learn through natural selection, humans learn through stories, rumors, and inherited fear. The myth of the milk snake stealing milk from cows stands as one of the most persistent examples of this misunderstanding. There is no biological mechanism that would allow such behavior, nor any evidence that it ever occurred. Yet the story endured, passed from generation to generation, shaping attitudes and actions. Snakes found in barns were killed not because they posed a threat, but because they represented one in imagination. This fear-based response reveals something deeper about human psychology. Humans are uniquely capable of abstract fear, fear detached from direct experience. The milk snake suffered because it resembled danger, not because it embodied it. In this way, its struggle mirrors broader patterns in human interaction with the natural world, where appearance often outweighs reality. Modern science has dismantled many of these myths, replacing folklore with data, observation, and ecological understanding. We now know that milk snakes are non-venomous, that they play a crucial role in controlling rodent populations, and that their presence often indicates a healthy, balanced ecosystem. Yet knowledge does not always translate into behavior. Fear, once learned, is slow to unlearn. The expansion of human infrastructure introduced new threats that evolution did not prepare the milk snake for. Roads cut through habitats, creating lethal barriers during seasonal movement. Urban development removes shelter and prey simultaneously, forcing snakes into increasingly fragmented landscapes. Agriculture alters ecosystems at a scale and speed that outpaces natural adaptation. Climate change compounds these pressures. Altered temperature patterns affect activity cycles, breeding timing, and prey availability. Extreme weather events destroy refuges and disrupt ecological rhythms that the milk snake relies on. While its adaptability has allowed it to persist through past climatic shifts, the current pace of change presents an unprecedented challenge. Despite this, the milk snake remains remarkably resilient. It continues to occupy a vast geographic range, adjusting its behavior, diet, and activity patterns in response to local conditions. This resilience, however, should not be mistaken for invulnerability. Populations decline quietly, often unnoticed, because the species lacks the dramatic presence that draws conservation attention. In ecological terms, the milk snake functions as a stabilizer. By regulating rodent populations, it indirectly influences plant communities, soil health, and disease dynamics. Remove it, and the effects ripple outward. Rodent numbers rise, crops suffer, disease vectors spread. The absence of the milk snake would not create immediate collapse, but slow imbalance, the kind that is hardest to trace back to its source. There is also an evolutionary lesson embedded in the milk snake story. It demonstrates that success in nature is not defined by dominance alone. Evolution rewards strategies that work, regardless of how dramatic they appear. Mimicry, restraint, and efficiency can be just as powerful as venom and strength. The milk snake survives not by confronting danger, but by navigating around it. In recent years, changing attitudes offer cautious optimism. Education programs, wildlife outreach, and increased awareness have begun to shift perception. Some farmers now recognize milk snakes as allies rather than threats. Urban wildlife initiatives emphasize coexistence over eradication. These changes are subtle but meaningful. To encounter a milk snake in the wild today is to witness a survivor shaped by misunderstanding. It does not seek attention, yet it carries centuries of projection on its patterned skin. It asks nothing from humans, yet its fate is deeply tied to human choices. Whether it continues to slip quietly through fields and forests depends less on its ability to adapt, and more on humanity's ability to reconsider fear. The milk snake does not challenge us through aggression or danger. It challenges us through contradiction. It looks like something it is not. It thrives because of that illusion, and it suffers because of it. In this paradox lies its significance. As ecosystems face increasing pressure, the future will belong to species that can adapt not only to environmental change, but to human perception. The milk snake has already proven it can master one kind of fear. Whether it can survive another remains uncertain. Yet for now, it endures. Moving through shadows, beneath stones, along the quiet edges of human spaces, the milk snake continues its ancient routine. It hunts, it hides, it reproduces, it persists. Not loudly, not dramatically, but effectively, and in that quiet persistence, it reminds us of a truth often forgotten. Nature does not need to be dangerous to be powerful. Sometimes, survival belongs to those who are simply misunderstood long enough to outlast the world around them.